Hi, this is Matt from tracyandmatt.co.uk, and this is the Touch HD. As many of you know, managed to get their hands on this just a couple of weeks ago, and since then we've had quite a few questions that we thought it would be easier to address with a video rather than just sort of commenting on the site. And some people want to know how the HD compares to other HTC products and indeed the Xperia X1. So let's just turn on and have a quick look. One of the first things that we've been asked about quite a bit is TomTom. So I have TomTom 6 running on here, and I'll just show you how that works. Wait for it to start up. As you can see, the startup is very small, but indeed it does work. But I believe this might be down to the fact that I have version 6.000 installed, and that might be down to different versions that do and don't work. But GPS on the Touch HD seems to be very good, seems to work very well. I pick up a signal very quickly, and I even pick up one indoors, which is pretty unusual. Don't seem to suffer any lag, but this is TomTom 6. It is a proper version, and say that seems to work very well. One of the other questions that we've had is regarding landscape and portrait use. So if I just use the GSEN application there, which is freely available on the web, and I just run that, I can rotate the screen, and as you can see it works in landscape, and I can switch back to portrait. And then if I go into, say, messaging, start typing a new message, new SMS message, and I rotate the screen there and turn on the on-screen keyboard, you'll see a fairly large landscape keyboard, which is pretty easy to use, quite easy to use with 2 fingers, so you can actually get quite a good type rate up through there, and then you can switch back to portrait, and even so this keyboard there is quite good. And I've been asked to compare Touch HD with the likes of the Sony Ericsson Xperia X1. So here you go, side by side. If I turn the screen on the X1 and go back to the main screen, you can see the size difference between the screens. The HD's got a much larger screen, although the resolution is the same. What I don't like personally about the X1, just to talk about the X1 very quickly, is the fact that the screen is recessed, which makes using touchscreen a bit more difficult, especially when you're trying to get into the corners with the close button in the corner or the buttons down at the bottom. Makes it a little bit more tricky, and the fact that screen is a little bit smaller than the Touch HD, it makes it a little bit more difficult. What the X1 does have advantage wise over and above the Touch HD is the fact that it has got physical buttons. So there are soft keys, there are send and end phone keys, there is a physical D-pad for navigating through menus, and obviously the panel and OK buttons, and there is a physical camera button, where the Touch HD requires you to use everything on the screen. Even the front keys are touch sensitive keys on the bottom of the screen. They aren't physical buttons. The only physical buttons we have on the Touch HD is the rocker and the power button. So if you're the sort of person that prefers the physical buttons to actually navigate around the screen and menus and everything else, then you'll probably prefer the X1. But if you're more comfortable using everything with touching the screen and touch sensitive, then you'll possibly prefer the HD. Obviously there is the other advantage on the X1 of the QWERTY keyboard, which obviously slides open, but there is the on-screen touch sensitive keyboard on the HD. Moving forward to the Touch Pro, again similar sort of comments really with the X1 versus the Pro. The Pro has the completely flat screen on the front, so using a touch screen is a lot easier to navigate, especially in the corners and everything else. And I personally think that the Pro looks a little bit more stylish with that flat front. I prefer it to the recessed screen on the X1. Keyboard advantage with the Pro is that it's a 9-row keyboard, kind of more conventional keys if you like, whereas the X1 has slightly smaller but more separated physical keys, which some people have said that they really like, and some people obviously dislike. Again, horses for courses, you pay money, you make choice. One thing I don't like about the X1 is that the number keys are shift function with the blue button there, and the number keys are actually situated over here rather than along the top row as you perhaps would expect a shift function for maybe the QWERTY keys along the top, but they are all clustered around this side, more like phone arrangement, which takes a little bit of getting used to. Whereas the Pro itself obviously has its own dedicated keys for the numbers, which I find to be quite useful. The Pro, there's really nothing to choose in terms of weight, and they are very similar. See the VGA display on the Pro versus the YVGA of the X1. And finally, the Diamond, which has been around for a while now, as we all know, and in comparison, it kind of similar. It looks more like Evolution than Revolution. We've obviously lost the keys on the bottom of the Diamond in favour of touch sensitive area on the HD. We still have the volume control rocker and the power button on top, but HD has dedicated 3.5mm jack socket there for the headphones. Charger remains at the bottom. Doesn't seem a great deal of difference in weight when you have them in a hand, but that's probably down to the size of the HD, a bit more spread out in terms of the weight. It's about 40 grams heavier than the Diamond. I would say if you really like the Diamond, if you love the Diamond in fact, and you like the touch screen, then the HD will seem like an evolutionary model and make a good step up and a logical step up from the Diamond to the HD. Whereas if you really like your keyboard devices, a device to have full QWERTY, then personally I would opt for the Pro rather than the X1. I think the Pro just has a few more advantages. I prefer the touch screen on the Pro, the fact that it's completely flush on the front, than the X1, and there is obviously the Touch Flow 3D natively on the Pro, although you can actually now get it on the X1. I think it makes more sense on a flush front display model. So that's kind of a summary of sort of 4 of the most popular devices at the moment, and as you can see there, HD very much the largest of them. So we have the HTC Touch Pro, the HTC Touch HD, Sony Xperia X1, and the Touch Diamond. Personal favourite at the moment is the Touch HD because I love the display, the size of the screen, the fact that it's nice and easily touch sensitive, and it's quite slim. But if I had to choose a device with a QWERTY keyboard, I think I would go for the Touch Pro personally. I prefer the 5 rows of keys versus the 4 rows of keys on the X1. So hopefully that's answered a few of your questions. As always, feel free to submit more and we'll try and address them in future videos or on the site.